You know what's gonna happen when you die? You're gonna rot in the ground.
In 2005, Hilary Swank stood on stage holding her second Oscar. She thanked her husband and called him her everything. 1 year later, they were divorcing. But that wasn't the only thing falling apart. Her biggest films after those wins lost millions. Her body was fighting a battle she hid from everyone. And the industry that gave her 2 golden statues couldn't figure out what to do with her anymore. What really happened to the woman who once seemed unstoppable? The answer involves hospital rooms, denied insurance claims, and a pattern no one saw coming. Hilary Swank was born on July 30th, 1974, in Lincoln, Nebraska, and her family kept moving until they settled in Bellingham. By the time she turned 6, she was living in a small trailer park near Lake Samish, a place where every day carried its own weight. The trailer park sat far from the city, and the struggles inside her home were easy for others to see. She has talked about how early she learned the sting of classism. When parents at school discovered she lived in a trailer, they pulled their children away from her. Invitations stopped. Playdates disappeared. And she slowly realized that people could decide your worth simply by looking at where you slept. This painful lesson stayed with her and shaped the way she saw the world. It made her more aware, more alert, and more sensitive to the quiet ways society draws lines around people. Those early years kept pushing her inward. Friends' parents didn't want her around. She would watch classmates go to birthday parties and dinners while she stayed behind, pretending she didn't mind. She was barely 7 when she understood that her home made her an outsider. The loneliness that came with that cut deep. But it also ignited something inside her. She turned to books and movies because they never judged her. They welcomed her. She lost herself in stories that showed characters fighting through pain and climbing out of dark places. Whenever she opened a book or watched a film, she felt a little closer to the person she hoped to become. That escape became her fuel, lifting her above the things that hurt her the most. All the while, life inside her family wasn't calm either. Her parents, Stephen and Judy, were always trying to stay ahead of bills and arguments. No matter how many jobs Stephen took, money remained tight. The tension in the house kept growing, and by the time Hilary was 15, the marriage had collapsed. The divorce pushed her and her mother to make a choice that felt risky but necessary. In 1990, they left Washington with only $75 and a single gas station credit card. They had nothing to fall back on but a dream and each other. Once they reached Los Angeles, the car they drove in became their first home. They slept in it for weeks while Judy searched for work, and Hilary went from audition to audition, trying not to feel embarrassed about showering in public restrooms or showing up in borrowed clothes. She was old enough to know how fragile their situation was, yet she kept going because she believed her future depended on it. Books and movies had always been her escape, but somewhere along the way, they became her calling. She found pieces of herself in the characters she admired. She saw possibilities in the stories she studied. Acting stopped being a childhood wish and started becoming a path that she felt pulled toward. She has said that stories made her feel less alone, and because of that, she wanted to become part of them. This passion kept growing until it lit up everything else in her life. It became the one steady thing she could hold on to while everything else felt unstable. Theater soon became her safe place. In Bellingham, the local theater community opened its doors to her, and it was the first environment where she didn't feel judged by her background. She joined the Bellingham Theater Guild and began performing in school and community productions. At 9, she stepped into her first role as Mowgli in The Jungle Book. The applause, the lights, and the energy connected with her immediately. The stage gave her a sense of belonging she had never felt before. It strengthened her confidence, and with each performance she grew a little more sure of herself. These early moments shaped her spirit and planted the idea that maybe the world had a place for her after all. By 15, she knew she had to take a bigger step. She dropped out of high school after her sophomore year and left for Los Angeles with her mother. It felt more like a desperate leap than a planned move. They packed all they had into the Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme and drove thousands of miles because turning back meant giving up everything Hilary had dreamed about. She later said that even at that age she understood the size of the risk. It wasn't only ambition pushing her. It was fear of losing her one chance. The car that carried their hopes also became their shelter. They drove from Washington to California and slept in that Oldsmobile along rest stops and quiet Los Angeles streets. Some nights were frightening. Some felt strangely freeing. They had no one waiting for them, no contacts, no safety net. Every day brought a new problem to solve, yet they stayed close and supported each other through everything. They spent weeks living out of the car, washing up in public bathrooms, and trying to look presentable for auditions even when they felt exhausted. Whenever they had the chance, they slept on an air mattress inside a house that had just been emptied by new friends. It didn't last long, but those rare nights under a roof felt like small miracles. After a month, things began to shift. Judy found a secretarial job, and with it, they managed to rent a single room from a single mother in Burbank. That tiny room felt like a huge victory. It wasn't stability in a true sense, but it gave them a base to build from. Hilary soon started booking small television roles. They didn't pay much, but each role reminded her that progress was possible. She often said that this time in her life taught her to appreciate every small comfort, because she knew exactly what it felt like to have nothing at all. Through all these moments, gratitude slowly took root inside her. She always remembered the nights in the car and the hunger she tried to ignore. She understood how valuable a warm meal or a quiet room could be. She said many times that the difficulties of her childhood and early Los Angeles years shaped her resilience. They forced her to think creatively, work harder, and stay grounded no matter how far she eventually rose. She credits her mother for carrying her through the darkest moments and for giving her the push she needed when her confidence shook. Her career struggles continued, even as she gained footing. In 1990, at 16, she and Judy were still living out of their car when they began searching for agents. They made calls from payphones because they couldn't afford anything else. Their persistence paid off when Judy secured a meeting with Bonnie Lidke, the agent who had discovered Leonardo DiCaprio. Swank signed with her and felt hope rising again. But Hollywood didn't open its doors easily. Rejection followed her everywhere. She auditioned for big roles, only to watch them go to actors who already had a name. She took tiny, uncredited parts to get by. She learned quickly that survival in Hollywood meant accepting small wins and holding on to them tightly. Her first notable film role came in 1992 with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She played a minor character named Kimberly Hanna. The movie opened at number 5 at the North American box office, earning $4.55 million its first weekend and totaling over $14 million domestically. Critics were mixed. They found it amusing, but forgettable. Even though the film didn't change her career, it placed her inside a world that would soon become iconic after the TV series premiered years later. It wasn't a breakthrough, but it helped her take another step forward. Around the same time, she kept appearing on popular TV shows like Harry and the Hendersons, Evening Shade, and Growing Pains. These were small parts that didn't bring recognition, but they kept her working. She also had a recurring role on Camp Wilder from 1992 to 1993, where she played a main character. The pay was modest, but she welcomed each job because it kept her close to the industry she was fighting to be part of. She has said that she was simply happy to work because acting itself was the reward she needed. In 1994, she finally landed a lead role in the next Karate Kid. She played Julie Pierce, Mr. Miyagi's new student. The film had all the ingredients for a hit on paper, but audiences didn't respond the way the studio hoped. It grossed only $8.75 million in the United States and just under $16 million worldwide, making it the lowest performing film in the franchise. Critics called it weak and uninspired. Some praised Hilary's performance, but the movie's failure slowed her momentum again. She later said that the experience taught her to be more careful about the roles she chose. In the late 1990s, she appeared in minor films like Heartwood and Quiet Days in Hollywood. Both movies slipped under the radar. Heartwood was a small-town drama that barely received reviews. Quiet Days in Hollywood was directed by her then-husband Chad Lowe and was criticized for its slow pace and uneven performances. Neither film helped her career, but both taught her what kind of roles she wanted to avoid. She realized she needed projects that spoke to her, not just jobs that paid the bills. Hilary Swank stepped into Beverly Hills 90210 in 1998, thinking she had finally found steady ground. She signed on for season 8 as Carly Reynolds, a hard-working waitress and single mother who slowly built a relationship with Steve Sanders. The promise felt real because she was told it would last 2 years, and for a young actress trying to break into television, that meant stability, visibility, and a place to grow. But after only 16 episodes, her character was quietly written out and sent to Montana with her child as if she had never mattered. The moment hit her harder than she expected. She later said she felt heartbroken and began wondering if she even belonged in Hollywood at all. The worst part was that the show itself was no longer at its peak. Ratings were down, and still she was the one who got cut, which made her question her talent even more. As time passed, people inside the show revealed that Hilary wasn't the problem. Tori Spelling and Jenny Garth both explained that the writing had failed her. Carly Reynolds had been introduced as overly intense and sometimes off-putting, and the scripts never gave her the layers or warmth that make audiences care. Viewers didn't connect with her because the story didn't invite them in. Producer Amy stepped forward to defend Hilary as well, saying she had real talent, and the character's issues came from weak development, not poor acting. It became a reminder of how even a skilled performer can be dragged down when the writing doesn't support them, and how a character's success often depends on the words placed in their mouth long before the camera rolls. All of this left Hilary doubting herself. She thought that if she wasn't good enough for a fading show, maybe she wasn't good enough at all. She even considered walking away from acting. But only 2 months later, something unexpected appeared in front of her. She landed an audition for Boys Don't Cry, and the role of Brandon Tina reshaped everything. The movie was intense and unlike anything she had done before, but she knew she had to try. When she later looked back at her firing from 90210, she called it a beautiful reminder that some doors close so better ones can open, even when the moment feels painful. That twist didn't just keep her career alive, it sent her toward the biggest achievement of her life. Preparing for Boys Don't Cry demanded more from her than anything she had ever attempted. After being cast, director Kimberly Pierce took her to a barbershop and watched as Hilary's long blonde hair was cut off and dyed chestnut brown. When she went home, her husband, Chad Lowe, barely recognized her. That was only the beginning. She started living as a man for almost a month. She wrapped her chest in tension bandages every morning, placed a sock in her pants, lowered her voice, and tried to pass as a boy in public. She dressed in men's clothes, changed the way she walked, and studied court transcripts and books about transgender identity to understand Brandon's inner world. She pushed herself so far that she began to feel she had lost pieces of Hilary and wondered if she would ever find them again. The transformation was deep, raw, and unlike anything people had seen from her before. When Boys Don't Cry premiered on October 8, 1999, critics were stunned. The film tackled subjects that mainstream cinema rarely touched at the time, and the honesty of its violence and identity struck people in a way that felt new. Reviewers called Hilary's performance one of the most powerful they had ever seen. This praise felt unreal considering she had only small credits before this, like The Next Karate Kid, and had just been fired from a teen drama. Suddenly, she was at the center of a film that would become a landmark in LGBTQ+ cinema. Her work made people cry, pause, and stay silent in theaters long after the credits rolled. She had stepped so far into Brandon's life that audiences forgot she was acting at all. Then came the night that changed Hollywood's expectations. At the 72nd Academy Awards in 2000, Hilary Swank won Best Actress. Her name was called over Annette Bening, who was favored to win after sweeping the BAFTA and SAG Awards for American Beauty, the year's Best Picture. No one expected Hilary to take the Oscar. She was still considered unknown, a young actress whose biggest roles had been a failed TV arc and a single breakout film. Her win stunned the industry. People spoke about her transformation, her commitment, and the emotional truth she brought to Brandon Tina. It became one of the biggest Oscar upsets in history and lifted her into a new chapter she once thought she'd never reach. But the night carried something painful too. On March 26, 2000, when she walked onto the stage to accept her award, she had only 30 seconds to speak. In the rush and overwhelm, she thanked her parents, her manager, her co-stars, and the producers. But she forgot to thank her husband, Chad Lowe, who had supported her through every struggle and even moved with her to Omaha during the filming. The moment she stepped off stage, she realized what had happened. Chad saw her face shift into panic as she understood she had forgotten the one person who had been by her side for everything. Cameras captured the look, and the story spread instantly across Hollywood. Her historic win was drowned out by headlines calling it a snub, and she felt devastated, knowing how much Chad had sacrificed for her success. The ride home after the Oscars felt slow and heavy. Chad tried to comfort her before she even spoke. He told her she didn't need to thank him on stage because she had always shown her appreciation privately. He wasn't hurt. He wasn't offended. But he could see how deeply the mistake was cutting into her. She apologized again and again, wishing she could take the moment back. Chad later said on a podcast that he felt terrible for her and wanted to protect her from the weight of it all. Still, the media kept pushing the narrative, and the constant attention strained their marriage. The world talked more about her missing words than the performance that had earned her the award. Even though they tried to move forward, the tension stayed with them and grew over the years, becoming one of many reasons they eventually divorced in 2007. The uproar never truly faded. Instead of celebrating her victory, talk shows and tabloids focused on the forgotten thank you, turning a tender mistake into a long-lasting public joke. Chad eventually said he always believed she had thanked him enough in private, and the public rule about thanking spouses was more tradition than anything meaningful. But for Hilary, the humiliation stayed with her. The story circled her for years and became a reminder of how fame can twist a single moment into something much bigger than it ever deserved to be. It hung over her marriage and added pressure to a bond already under the spotlight. Her experience became a quiet warning about how fragile the line is between triumph and scrutiny, and how even the brightest nights can carry a shadow that takes time to shake off. Hilary Swank walked into her million-dollar baby training like she had something to prove. And once she started, she never slowed down. Every morning she stepped into Gleason's gym in New York, the same place where Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson carved their legends, and she pushed herself for nearly 5 hours straight. First came about 2.5 hours of boxing. She jumped rope, hit the bag, and drilled footwork over and over until sweat ran down her back. After that, she moved into another 1.5 hours of weightlifting. She did push-ups, pull-ups, and even pushed her own SUV across a parking lot to build power. Day after day, her body changed. She ate close to 4,000 calories a day. She took in about 210 grams of protein and around 60 egg whites, and slowly her weight moved from a slim 108 pounds to a strong 131. At one point, she developed a dangerous staph infection from blisters on her feet, but she hid it because she didn't want to break the rhythm she had built. Her trainer later said she looked like a finely sculpted Greek statue when the training ended, but by then she was already deep into Maggie Fitzgerald's skin. The work paid off in a way that carried her straight into the 2005 Academy Awards. On February 27th, inside the Kodak Theater in Los Angeles, she took home her second Best Actress Oscar. She was the first woman in the 21st century to do that, and she was only 30 years old. Her name joined Louise Rayner, Bette Davis, Olivia de Havilland, Vivien Leigh, and Ingrid Bergman on a list most actors only dream about. She stood there thanking Annette Bening, Imelda Staunton, Catalina Sandino Moreno, and Kate Winslet for the honor of standing beside them. Then she turned toward her husband and told him he was her everything. It sounded like a perfect moment, but life outside the spotlight didn't match the applause inside that theater. Soon the cracks around her marriage with Chad Lowe began to widen. They had been together since 1997 and stayed married through all the pressure of her early years, but just a year after her second Oscar, they separated in January 2006. By May, the divorce was public. Later, she revealed how deeply she had struggled with his substance abuse and how hard she tried to hold everything together. He admitted he was never jealous of her success, but he had lost the drive in his own career, and the imbalance created a weight neither of them could ignore. Fans were stunned because they looked inseparable, but the truth was that her proudest professional moments had lined up right beside some of her most painful personal ones. That strange pattern kept repeating itself. Every time she reached a new peak, something heavy pulled at her life behind the scenes. After Boys Don't Cry in 2000, her relationship started shaking, and after Million Dollar Baby in 2005, it collapsed completely. She later said she went down every road she could to save the marriage, but nothing fixed the wounds underneath. She won awards in front of millions of people while fighting heartbreak in private, and the contrast only grew sharper as her career moved forward. Her next big film was The Black Dahlia in 2006, and expectations were high because she was coming off 2 Oscars. The movie had a $50 million budget and opened on September 15th. It made $10 million in its first weekend and finished with a global total of about $49.3 million. The numbers didn't add up. Critics said it looked beautiful but felt empty, and many had trouble connecting with her character. The Rotten Tomatoes rating stopped at 23%. The film's decline happened fast, and the disappointment was hard for her to ignore after so much momentum. Then there was The Core in 2003, Released a little earlier in her career, but still part of the same pattern. It cost $85 million to make, and only brought in $74 million worldwide. Critics called it unrealistic and even laughable. Her character, a geophysicist, didn't land the way the studio hoped. It became a warning sign in Hollywood about how big budgets don't matter if the story doesn't hold people. Next came Amelia in 2009, a film with promise. It followed the life of Amelia Earhart, with a $40 million budget, a respected director like Mira Nair, and actors like Richard Gere and Ewan McGregor. But when it opened with only $3.9 million its first weekend, the hope faded quickly. The total box office stopped at $19.6 million worldwide. Critics gave it a 19% score and called it cold and predictable. People walked away without feeling anything, and the disappointment grew sharper because expectations were so high. Even The Reaping in 2007 couldn't shake her from the pattern. The film cost around $40 million and made about $62.7 million globally. It opened with $10 million in its first weekend, then fell off fast. Critics called it predictable, and audiences didn't connect with it. Some praised her acting, but the film itself couldn't carry the weight. And the result added to the idea that outside serious dramas, she struggled to attract viewers. Hollywood began to see her in only one narrow way. Winning 2 Oscars made her a prestige actress, but it also trapped her. She talked about this openly, saying that people didn't know what to hire her for. Her attempts at other genres kept falling flat, and she admitted that Hollywood felt more patriarchal than ever when she started. Her range was wide, but the industry had already decided where she fit, and she kept hitting the same wall. While her career faced confusion, her body faced battles she never talked about. For more than 11 years, she dealt with ovarian cysts and endometriosis. The pain brought fatigue, reflux, and constant discomfort. In 2008, she had an emergency surgery to remove one ovary after a cyst became dangerous. Her remaining ovary kept developing cysts, and she needed regular monitoring. Endometriosis, diagnosed in 2019, added more pain, more bloating, and more uncertainty. Birth control didn't help. Her fertility was affected. She kept working through the pain and didn't share any of it publicly until her insurance denied coverage, and she had no choice but to speak. In September 2020, she sued the SAG-AFTRA health plan for rejecting her treatments. She had paid into the plan for years, but after 2016, her claims were marked as infertility-related, even though the treatments were meant to prevent cancer and hormonal issues. From 2017 to 2020, she submitted requests for ultrasounds and surgeries, and everyone was denied. An anonymous review from an OB/GYN upheld the denial. She saw the decision as not only unfair, but dangerous. So she stepped forward and said she was suing because she wanted fair treatment, not only for herself, but for every woman facing the same struggle. She said she was tired of women's health being dismissed. Her voice echoed across Hollywood, and many women supported her for speaking out about something that touched so many. Her fertility struggles grew heavier with time. Losing one ovary in 2008 and dealing with cysts in the other left her future unclear. She tried to protect her body and her chances of motherhood, but every denied claim made it harder. She wanted a family, and each setback carried emotional weight on top of physical pain. The fight with insurance made the journey even more painful because it meant she was battling her own body, and the system meant to support her. Her life shifted again in 2018 when she met Philip Schneider on a blind date set up by friends. They met at 10 in the morning and stayed together until 11 at night because the connection felt that natural. After years of heartbreak, the ease of that day surprised her. They married a few months later, After her long marriage to Chad Lowe from 1997 to 2007, and a series of relationships that never reached permanence, this one brought a kind of calm she had not felt in years. She described it as love at first sight, and often said it felt like the gift she never expected. Motherhood arrived late, but carried its own kind of magic. In October 2022, she announced her pregnancy with twins on Good Morning America. She had frozen her eggs at age 37, and at 47, she finally became pregnant. On April 10, 2023, she gave birth to Aya and Om on Easter Sunday at age 48. The pregnancy was high risk and complicated, but both babies arrived healthy. She talked about the journey as a marathon and said every step reminded her to be patient and present. She embraced the changes in her body and smiled whenever she spoke about the joy she found in motherhood. Her joy dimmed again in October 2025 when her rescue dog Kai died unexpectedly. The loss hit her hard because Kai had been with her through so many turns in her life. She had adopted him from a school in the San Fernando Valley, and he became a part of her story the moment she carried him home. She wrote an emotional tribute online, calling the loss sudden and surreal. She talked about his polka dot paws and belly, and how he had been steady through her biggest changes. Fans sent messages from around the world because they knew how much he had meant to her. Not long after, in December 2025, she found herself in an uncomfortable spotlight again. She was at LAX on December 10th, when she saw a woman named Jada Bafus holding a phone and thought she was taking pictures of her twins. Swank snapped at her and walked away. Later, she learned the woman wasn't filming her at all. Jada was traveling with two terminally ill sons, Mason, who was 7, and Jack, who was 4, both on a Make-A-Wish trip to Disneyland. Swank apologized publicly once she understood what had happened. Jada accepted the apology and said she knew celebrities lived under constant pressure. The moment stirred a wide conversation about privacy, stress, and compassion, but it settled when both women expressed understanding for the other's situation.